obviously yesterday we talked about Myles Garrett and how unhappy Myles seemed to be after the latest loss. And I had said some of that felt performative, but that if Myles wants to make a change, I think he can. I think Myles is a $40 million man. I think they showed by paying him instead of trading him that he has at least some say here or some part of what maybe their ear. I thought it was interesting then after that discussion that we had yesterday. And Myles and his frustration, Mary Kay Cabot was on with the Midday Boys. They asked Mary Kay about Myles Garrett's frustration. Mary Kay had some interesting things to say.
Myles is very, very, very frustrated, and he's having arguably the best season of his career. And so he's long talked about wanting to win championships and go to the playoffs and all of those things. And here he is, stuck on a team that appears to be going nowhere this season, and that's tough for him to take. I think in the offseason, he's going to have some assurances that things are going to be different and why they're going to be different and how they're going to be different. I haven't looked at the economics of it, but I don't even know if it's possible or feasible to trade him after paying him all the guaranteed money that they already have. But I do think that he will want some acknowledgement that something's got to give for next season and that there's going to be some victories coming, or he's going to want, I don't know if he would ever ask to be traded again or whatever, but he's not going to be able to continue on like this and maintain his sanity.
So does he just want, hey, we know we suck? Is that the assurance he's looking for?
Hey, we have a quarterback plan.
Or, there are a couple players making more money than him. Would $50 million make Myles happy to go 3-14 next year?
I bet it would.
Yeah,
I bet it would. So the hard part about this discussion is that I feel like Myles doesn't have nearly the leverage that even Myles thinks he has in this, because when you balk 6 weeks into what you did last year, all you did was tell everybody that basically you're not serious about a real threat of not playing.
I agree, but I do think what's interesting is he does have a lot of public sentiment right now of, oh, poor Myles Garrett. Like there were multiple national media members reacting to the 5-sack game and going, woe is Myles, even if he didn't, while acknowledging, by the way, he just signed the $40 million a year contract.
I guess we got to figure out what his new end goal is. Is his new end goal to get out of town? Because if his new end goal is to get out of town and get traded this offseason, he's got to do it a lot different than what he did this last year.
Okay, how would that look?
It would be like actually threatening. It would be doing the Micah Parsons. It would be going on not only your own world media tour and hosting your own podcast and doing all that stuff, but it would be taking it up to the season to then get traded. But I think Myles doesn't want to miss games. The heart of this is Myles knows he's in his prime. Myles knows these are the years you stack up DPOY cases and get yourself into Canton, and I just don't think he wants to actually miss games.
So from a cap side of things, trading Myles would be darn near impossible given what they just paid him.
It's really not, though. This is why I don't understand this logic that people put out there. Like it's very doable in a in a post June 1st trade. So you have to wait until June 1st. You can do a Myles Garrett trade. It would be $15 million in dead cap money, followed by $11 million the next year, and then it decreases and decreases to a point that is extremely manageable. So $15 million in dead cap is like a third of what you had to pay Deshaun Watson next season in dead cap money. Like it is very, very shockingly manageable. The only out you have is you have to wait until after June 1st. There's a couple of designations you can do prior to June 1st to make it retroactive, but it's got to be a post-June 1st trade designation. It is very possible.
Look at that. All the other cap analysts say it's not doable, though.
I don't understand what they're not looking at. I don't get it. I really don't. It's all right there. It's public knowledge. Unless there's a different contract,
you idiots,
that over the cap isn't working with, then I don't understand it. Like I'd love to know who your other capologist is that says this outside of Daryl.
No. I think it was the throngs of people saying they just signed him to a contract and they can't.
Yeah, no, it's very doable. Like, it's very, very doable.
Like Clownatoots. Now, This being said...
Like you can. If you want out of this, you can do it.
Listen, I don't blame you if your initial reaction to this is, oh, Myles wants assurances. He won them last year and then he got $40 million. I understand. I called for yesterday for Myles to use his power within the organization, that you don't just have to ask for another trade. If you think Stefanski and Barry are about to get fired and you believe one or both of them are the right guys to lead this organization, use your power to say that internally, right? Externally is one thing. Do it internally as well. You don't have to choose one or the other, because if you choose just the public side of things and not do it privately, that feels more performative than reality. Also, if you feel like one or either guy isn't it, and they're why you're in the situation, use your power both externally and internally to say that. I'm going to say this could be part of Myles doing that, one half of Myles saying, hey, just so you know, at some point, there's going to be a reckoning. I have to have a conversation with people in charge.
I mean, the advantage of what Myles did this last time around was he got himself a no-trade clause. That was very smart of Myles because it sets it up where they can't just trade him to any run-of-the-mill team and basically make sure that his life is miserable because a 3-win team wants Myles Garrett on the roster and they're going to pony up 3 first-round picks. That was smart of Myles. But this next go-around, if he wants to be on a different team, he can have that opportunity. And this conversation is not going anywhere, I don't think, Nick.
So I think part of the acknowledgement he's really looking for is he wants to have his voice heard internally, potentially on Barry and Stefanski. I don't know he can pass the whole give me another quarterback plan next year and then I'll okay it because he okayed Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and these 2 quarterbacks that you currently have in your roster.
Or he okayed them just being like, hey, we have a plan. Just tell everyone we have a plan.
Yeah. Hey,
can you just
Myles,
do that? Can you tell Siciliano we have a plan?
We'll give you $40 a year. If you just let people know we've got a real concept of a plan going on here.
And give us that smirk when you do it, too.
Give it like you really know something. Like you really know something.
A lot of people really thinking he actually knew a plan, when it's so obvious they had no plan.
I mean, in fairness, a lot of people took Jimmy Haslam's vote of confidence from the owners' meeting as like an ironclad oath that Kevin Stefanski isn't going anywhere, and then 24 hours later, they were like, what are we doing?
Do I think that Myles has enough power to sway Jimmy Haslam to fire DePodesta, Stefanski, and Barry? I don't think he does at this point.
Why not?
We have no evidence to suggest that he does. Like Jimmy Haslam to this point, and it could change. I hope it changes. To this point, has been lockstep with those 3 that we're talking about to a point where he has favored their opinions, their everything over what Myles has been able to offer up.
Then I think if you're Myles, then you have to. It's basically an ultimatum. Either we see change within this, and again, I'm assuming that that's what Myles is going to want, because I think Myles is smart enough to go, well, you moved on from Baker, you moved to Deshaun Watson, it's the worst trade. By the way, all Myles would be doing is using logic. That's what kills me. Is there so many people defending Barry and Stefanski, and they made the worst trade in NFL history.
Yeah.
That's as if it was just like, well, yeah, that happens. No, it doesn't. No. Guys get fired for doing incredibly big things that don't work out. That's the downside of this damn thing.
That's why most people don't actually take big swings, is because the understood repercussion of that is that you're going to get fired. You're going to lose your job.
And I
have to update the LinkedIn resume.
But I think Myles has to go to them and say, if whatever he wants. If he wants continuity, then he needs to fight for it. If he wants change, then he needs to fight for it.
That's the hard part, though.
There has to be an or else attached to it.
I don't even know that Myles knows what he wants. He just wants to win. I think he understands he wants to win, but I don't think Myles is like, here's my blueprint. This is how we should go about winning, and you have to orchestrate this. I think Myles is frustrated, but I think Myles is like, I don't. That's your job. Your job is to figure out how to win. Ultimately, I want to win, and at this point for the Browns, it's just easier said than done. It's very hard to get a quarterback. It's very hard to make this all work.
I don't think it's that hard. Well, no, that's not fair. It's obviously hard to win for this organization, but I think it's obvious. I think you've done the analytics thing, and again, it's not analytics. It's analytics to the nth degree that it's the end-all, be-all. You've done that. Now get me some football people. Okay, look at me. I'm playing the best football of my career under Jim Schwartz, a football guy. Find me a head coach that's not Jim Schwartz, that is like Jim Schwartz. Find me a GM who's like Jim Schwartz, a guy who is football first and then uses analytics to supplement the decision instead of analytics run every damn decision you make.
I just think he's looking at this quarterback class coming up, and I think he's seeing that there's no quick fix, there's no easy answer, and I think he's frustrated at the idea that they went into that press conference. I'll never forget Andrew Berry saying this isn't baseball. You don't need 5 years to turn this thing around. It's not baseball. You can do this quick. And now as we're staring at everything, it looks like this is going to be a multi-year plan in order to try to get some semblance of winning. And I think Myles is very frustrated, as he should be.
I get it.
I'm frustrated too.
I get it. You can't hold their words against them if they just don't talk. Thought partners.
That is part of the idea. You can't. Well, again, there's people like me that I remember things that Andrew Berry says, and then I throw them back in his face. If he never talks, I got nothing. I can't say anything about DePodesta. The man never speaks.
Hey guys, I know every day, You put your hard-earned money into that team. Don't worry, they're smarter than you, and now they're ignoring you. Thought partners. Yeah.
What's the Reagan
I am
peace
not
thing?
A crook.
Yeah.
This is our Watergate.
But then you followed up with water guns or something? I don't.
These were not water guns. These were.
Oh, those are pistols, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Because that's what thought partners do. All right? They got those toy cap guns. They play. I don't know what the hell they do. I just know they don't make good football decisions. But don't worry. They're not talking today. They're not talking this week. They're not talking next week either. Except you, Kevin Stefanski. You can twist in the wind, son.
They probably turn around. Yesterday,
Leadership.
we talked about Vanessa telling you basically, well, you're just better at it than I am. Yeah. That's their conversations. They just turn to Stefanski. Well, you're just better at not saying anything than we are.
Yeah.
So we'll just keep throwing you out there. That's going to work. You're just better at it than we are.
Thought partners. 216-474-0092. The Thought Partners will not be speaking the rest of this week nor next week. Now you, Kevin Stefanski, your asses, you're going to talk 4 times a week next week, and you're going to love every second of it. And it's interesting, until you brought up the numbers that a post-June 1 trade for Myles actually would be bearable for the Browns, I actually think that gives Myles a little bit more leverage in this. Because there was a part of me that's like, well, I mean, I think people saw the if they cut him number, which is like, I think, $90 million. Yeah,
it's an insanely high number, yeah.
And thought, well, he doesn't have any leverage because they couldn't possibly stomach that when they're already thinking about stomaching the Deshaun Watson stuff and whether to cut him or whatever. I think Myles having an out with, well, it's not that bad if you trade me after June 1, I think it gives him even more power. I think he should. I think if he is really not happy with this, I don't know what they can tell him. Like, there's only so many ways you get a quarterback, but do I think Myles should be, do I think that's what a leader does? Not just publicly do this stuff, but do it internally? Yes. So I encourage Myles to do.
If they did trade him, wouldn't it be on the idea that they couldn't offer up any plan of actually winning? And then it was like, or it was even just a longer term plan that maybe Myles was comfortable with? Like, if they traded him, we would have to be set up for 2-3 years before we start to see any sort of fruits of labor payoff?
Maybe even more.
Yeah, like, I mean, like, for our own personal selves, for the people listening, for you, for me, if they traded him, that is disastrous for us watching competitive football.
And here's the thing, I don't want to trade Myles. I actually, the shame of it is he's missed the moment to break scot-free with the Browns, because I think there were a lot of people that would have supported him in his trade request back in January. I was one of them. I understood. I felt for Myles. And then we did the settling for $40 million. I think it's a lot more complicated now. I think it would complicate his legacy to force them this time to trade him this offseason as opposed to last offseason. It doesn't mean he shouldn't do it. I don't want to trade him, but I understand if he gets to a point where they're not going to listen to him or they're not going to have a path to competitiveness, if he says, I'm going to be 30 next year, Micah Parsons just did this, and maybe that renews his interest in, or maybe he saw a way now that Micah did it, that he can now do it.
Only thing I find fascinating is how extreme is he willing to take this?
Yeah.
You know, I just don't know that answer, because he didn't take it to the extreme last time. And I remember the day before Myles signed the extension and decided to stay, it was a Friday, and Aditi Kinkhabwala had this whole, it was a tweet, and then I went with it, the idea that Myles is just, he's just a different cat, right? Like, he could do his poetry, he could just spend time in Asia, and it just wouldn't really bother him, and he could just kind of be away from football for a little bit. And then within 24 hours later, he just completely disproved that. And so, like, even if you try to come at me with some of those narratives, like, oh, Myles is serious about it this time, he's gonna miss games, I already fell for the banana in the tailpipe. Like, I'm not gonna do that again.
I think this time, because last time they had Barry back, they had Stefanski back. Assuming that one way or another, you can't really sell it to Myles. Even if you bring both guys back, you can't sell it that anything's going to change. I think the Browns, I thought they owed it to him in January to take his request seriously, and I think they owe it to him now. At some point, and money's fine. Clearly, money for Myles at $40 million a year was enough to at least sign up for one more year. At some point, this organization that screams all the time how, we got to do right by this player and we got to do right. If Myles is truly that unhappy, at some point, You got to do right by Myles, even if I hate the end result, because I sure as hell don't trust that organization, no matter who's in charge, to make the picks and get it right.
That's a funny point. They're very quick to be we're the good guy organization until it's a player or person that actually matters of consequence.
Yep.
Like they're very quick to be like, oh, we did it right, and then let's tell everyone how right we did by them, until it's someone like Myles, and it just doesn't equate the same way.
So we referenced this at the end of yesterday's show. It was Connor Orr and Albert Breer together on the MMQB podcast talking about the fallout of Myles' 5-sack performance, his disenchantment with the Cleveland Browns, and maybe what the Browns should do.
By the time you get to the point where you're competing for a championship again, what's Myles Garrett going to have left is my question. He turns 30 in December. I don't know that the timelines match up. And so then the question becomes, are you better off just trading him now, and maybe you get 2 first-round picks for him? And now all of a sudden, you're going to have 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years, like an insane haul. If you're Detroit or Buffalo, would you trade for him right now?
I mean, yeah, all across the board, right?
Yeah, I think this is where the thing could go if you don't give him whatever assurances he's want. Listen, they should trade him if that's what Myles wants, because it's doing right by Myles, especially if you think the next 2 years are bupkis as well. If you don't think there's a quarterback that can change your fortunes in 2026 draft, then you are going to have to go a longer road, at which point, it makes more sense to trade him, just the way it made sense to trade him in January, by the way.
Yeah, again, where the timelines don't match up, and Albert's right there about the timelines not matching up, is the idea that if they're going to try to sell him that they're going to be awesome next year, find me the quarterback. Where's that coming from?
Yeah.
Unless Shedeur is just awesome and is great, and we haven't even seen him be able to play. You don't have that in your hands right now, and it doesn't seem like you're going to get that through the draft at this current point.
Yeah, and I just think, this is just such a sign at how bad these guys, and this is why, we were sounding the alarms in January. I'm not trying to do I Was Right radio, but
it is our favorite type of radio,
and we're really good at it.
We
guys.
really like it a lot.
But
other shows just move away from it. We like it.
Well, here's the thing: we'll also tell you when we were wrong. It never happens, but we tell you when we were wrong. But this to me is why when the organization told you boldface, hey, don't worry. It doesn't take 5 years to rebuild. We've got a plan. We have concepts of a plan. Jimmy Haslam came out and spoke glowingly. This is why you cannot trust them. And I don't mean this in a heavy-handed way. They want you to keep buying tickets to games. They want you to keep buying jerseys. And they're not going to come out and say anything that is going to disrupt that, especially with a stadium on the way. All right? So clearly, keeping Myles here was a way to satiate fans while also understanding, the season's probably going to suck. But when they said, hey, we're going to try and win, I think they are trying to win. And they're 2-6. That's the concern right now. This is not an organization that's tanking per se, at least not yet this season. And they're 2-6, and they just got blown out by a team that had a top with the 7th pick in last year's draft. The 4th pick. They had 1 pick ahead of you after the trade down with Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's not good, and I think Myles knows it's not good. I was kind of surprised though how Mary Kay really put an emphasis on how upset Myles was. And it's again, that part isn't surprising. Myles gets upset often, but the idea that this time it felt just a little bit different. And I don't know, are we going to have this Myles now for the rest of the season where he's just going to be angry and yell about things and how unjust this all is? We might. And then I feel like this offseason is going to turn into exactly what it was last offseason.
I did say Sunday felt a little performative. If Myles doesn't see an end game here, I can see Myles making it very uncomfortable. While games he's got 3 sacks in, he's stomping around on the sidelines. I don't know that's... initially, I thought maybe that's a message to you guys, right? I think it might be more of a message to the guys who lead this team. And I think that's maybe his way, right? Making it uncomfortable like Micah Parsons did.
Which worked for Micah Parsons. It did. And for a while, it worked for Myles until he signed the $40 million deal.
216-474-0092. Should the Browns reconsider trading Myles Garrett? If they actually care about Myles as a person and you don't think you're going to win next year, and it might not be till 2027 or 2028, yes, you should. This might be the time to do the right thing. Now, here's the problem. They're not going to do it because they don't really care about Myles and what Myles wants. They care about themselves, which is pretty much how the NFL works.